next year will be a crazy year for Brazil. Not only are the presidential elections coming up, but we'll also have the World Cup. And if there is one thing that overlaps politics and football, it is the Brazilian jersey. And that's because even before his election in 2018, the Brazilian jersey was already starting to be associated with President Bolsonaro. And it's not a small thing. In Brazil, if you wear the Brazilian jersey in public, people will think that you are a Bolsonaro supporter. And it's quite crazy if you think about it, right? Because it's a piece of clothing that everyone has, and historically it represents so much of what it means to be Brazilian. It represents moments of unity, of fun, of sportsmanship, in a way that our anthem or our flag cannot even grasp. So how did its meaning change in just a couple of years? Welcome to Fruta Bomba. This is a space where we talk about everything Latin America. I'm Caroline Coutinho, and if this sounds interesting to you, don't forget to subscribe. Let's start recapping a bit the history of the Canarinho shirt. Football fanatics will probably already know this, but Brazil only started sporting green and yellow in the late 50s. Before that, players used to wear a white jersey with some blue details. 1950 was an exciting year to be a Brazilian football fan. For the first time, Brazil was hosting the World Cup. And not only that, we were doing well. We won against Sweden 7-1. Wow, that came back to bite us, didn't it? And against Spain, 6-1. Needless to say, there was a lot of anticipation for the final against Uruguay. Then we lost.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
So after that happened, the white Brazilian jersey kind of became synonymous with bad luck. And in 1952, the Brazilian Football Association hosted a contest to find a new design for the team. The chosen design was by Aldir Garcia Schlet, who was only 19 at the time. And his design is quite similar to what we have now. And the kit only made its debut in 1958 at the World Cup, but it didn't take long for it to become iconic. And that's because we started winning. Again, and again, and again, and again. I remember growing up and everyone would know that the World Cup was coming up because the whole city would change. People would walk around wearing the Brazilian jersey. They would put like Brazilian flags on the windows, and some would even paint Rumo Hexa on the walls, you know? And to be fair, it's not like the Brazilian jersey was never used in politics. For example, in the 80s, people would wear the Brazilian jersey and go to the streets demanding direct presidential elections, a movement that was called Direta Já, and even Pelé supported it. But things started to become more intense around 2013. At the time, Dilma Rousseff was serving her first term as president, but Brazil was very unstable socially. In 2013, the GDP was doing okay, extreme poverty was at its lowest levels, and more people were entering the middle class. But as things improved economically, more people, especially young people, were unsatisfied by structural issues that persisted, like corruption, violence, and bad infrastructure. And as we'll learn in June of that year, dissatisfaction was like gasoline to a match. And the match in question is 20 cents. Okay, so let me explain. In early June 2013, small groups in São Paulo took to the streets to protest against a 20 cents increase in public transport tickets. In one of these protests, however, the police responded violently, and although there were no victims, Brazilians were outraged by the episode. Soon, marches throughout the country broke out. They were no longer protesting against how expensive public transport was. Now they wanted police reform, better public infrastructure, and the end of corruption. It was one of the few moments in Brazil where people marched together with a clear goal and independent of political parties or ideology. And at one point, 89% of the population supported it. And although it wasn't an official symbol, a lot of people would wear the Brazilian jersey during protests. But didn't I just say that the movement didn't have any official parties or ideology? How does this relate to Bolsonaro? Okay, so let's finally get into it. As protests went on, so did polarization. Different groups started organizing themselves around their own specific ideas of what should come next. So in 2014, after the World Cup and after the Lava Jato operation started, even though Dilma got re-elected, it was clear that Brazil was going through a crisis, economically and politically. And many groups that protested against corruption in 2013 were now protesting for Dilma's impeachment in 2016. At this time, the patriotic and conservative tone was clear. And it's important to note the role of social media during all of this. From 2013 to Dilma's impeachment, a lot of protests were organized through Twitter or Facebook groups, some of whom became huge online influencers. And you know who was one of them?
Dia Internacional de Direitos Humanos. No Brasil,
Bolsonaro gained popularity for being a man of the people. Tell it like it is. Although he was often under media scrutiny for the racist and homophobic things he said. Does that sound familiar? As Bolsonaro grew in popularity, he appropriated patriotic symbols to identify with his supporters. Not only was the Brazilian jersey something that virtually everyone had, but it also had the Brazilian national colors, which is often associated with conservatism in Brazil and in some contexts with the military regime, something that Bolsonaro is very fond of. And this is how a piece of clothing went from a badge of honor in sports to now pretty much being associated with one man. And all of this takes us to the question, what's next? Some people like Walter Casagrande believe that we should retrieve the jersey's democratic values.
A camisa amarela sempre esteve do lado da democracia, da justiça e da liberdade. Mas uns 4 anos atrás ela foi meio que sequestrada por grupos antidemocráticos, racistas, homofóbicos e preconceituosos. Ela nunca esteve nessa posição. Eu faço parte de grupo de pessoas que querem resgatar essa camisa.
I've heard some people saying that they would rather see the return of the white Brazilian jersey. For example, in 2019, Brazil played in white once to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the jersey. And who knows, maybe next year some football fans will use the shirt as a way to show that they're not interested in politics during the World Cup. And maybe it will bring us better luck this time. And that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and of course, as always, all my references will be in the description down below. And if you like this video, I would really appreciate it if you could give it a like, and even more if you could subscribe. Otherwise, I will see you in the next video. Bye!